Surface dusting is a cutting technique where you remove the damaged parts from the midshaft while keeping your actual length, so you won't be cutting into this foundation at all. So you want to take small sections of hair, 3 fingers, and you're going to weave the hair in, just like you're weaving a basket, like this. As you slide this down, little hairs are going to stick out. And I know my fingers look weird. You're going to cut just the tip off those. Usually they'll have a white little bulb or a split end to represent the damage, and you just keep sliding down. And you repeat that wherever it's needed on your head. You can also just take a small section, put your pointer finger under. I just like to use the 3 fingers because it gives me more control and tension so I can see better. When you're doing this, you want to make sure that your scissors or shears are super sharp. One reason you can get this damage to the midshaft is from getting a haircut with super dull shears. So sometimes you can even go in for a haircut and come out looking worse because you'll have split ends immediately after, or even after a couple shampoos. Think of cutting a steak with a butter knife. You really have to hack at it if you're using a butter knife, and then the steak looks all frayed and crazy looking, versus cutting it with a really sharp knife. It's a nice clean cut, the steak looks beautiful. So just like you would want to cut a steak with a super sharp knife, you need to use super sharp shears, that's a lot to say, when you're cutting your hair. I'll link below a pair under $10 on Amazon. They're great, especially for at-home haircuts. You're not going to use them a ton. You can also get this damage from too much heat, which is what's happening here. Usually when that happens, it's only the top layer of hair, this halo effect, because if you go inside the hair, there's no damage. It's just this halo layer. Usually when we're styling, curling our hair, we only focus on what we really can see, the top layer. That's why a lot of damage is done to the bang area. To avoid that, you'll want to make sure you're using a heat protectant and using less heat if possible. Heatless curlers are a good alternative. And here's a side-by-side comparison. I did one side of dusting and one side of no dusting. It looks a lot better, but there's still some obvious signs of damage, which I'm just going to leave like that because you want to be careful of overdoing this. If you're cutting, you are making micro layers in the hair. Overdoing it could give you an undesirable shape. And I also wouldn't suggest doing this too often so you don't over thin the hair. You can also get this damage from over bleaching, over coloring, and from detangling with a fine tooth comb. So a comb that looks similar to this. You have to think, if you have curly hair, thicker, coarse hair, and you try to push it through this tiny gap, it's going to snag and cause breakage. You need to be using a wider comb, and really not even this, a detangling comb. I don't have one here right now, but where the teeth are like this. My fingers really are crazy. So if you have this issue, definitely try doing the dusting. Just be really careful of your knuckle. When you have the hair in here, you don't want to cut your knuckle right here, and take your time. It is kind of a tedious task.